What's going down, YouTube world? We at it again with another cool reaction video. Hope everybody chilling out there. Hope everybody had a cool day. So yeah, man, today's video we're gonna react to I guess the history of lynchings in this country. It's things that schools they don't want to teach in schools about the terrorism that white people used against black people in the late 1800s. All the way up into the 1970s, I believe, as far as, again, like I said, a way of terrorizing, a way of controlling the black community. So let's go ahead and get into this video, and we're going to rap a few ticks about it.
After slavery was prohibited in 1865, formerly enslaved people in America were granted full citizenship, the right to vote, and under the 14th Amendment, protection from racial violence. Formerly enslaved people were promised land and opportunity, but most got nothing because America quickly devolved into an era of racial terrorism and oppression for black citizens.
If you don't know anything about what he was saying, during or after the Civil War, black people were granted freedom from the Emancipation Proclamation. I believe they were granted the right to vote, but in southern states, or they was being prohibited from voting. Well, it wasn't until after the troops was removed from the South during Reconstruction. Before that, they had the Union troops in the South. Black people in the South were allowed to vote, and that's when you started getting state representatives that were black people during the time of Reconstruction. But after Reconstruction, when Jim Crow era started to happen, that's when they lost the right to vote. But let's go ahead and keep going into the video.
White people in the South were angry that people formerly considered property were now equal citizens. Many turned to violence. In the years immediately following the Civil War, thousands of black people were murdered when they tried to claim their rights.
No more.
Soon afterwards, federal troops were withdrawn from the South, ending a brief period of racial progress known as Reconstruction. Nationwide resistance to racial equality resulted in the reestablishment of racial subordination through biased law.
So you hear what he said? They didn't want racial equality to be established throughout the United States. So they started this whole system of this biased laws and crazy
disenfranchisement
shit.
And terrorism, most dramatically enforced through lynchings. Racial terror lynchings of black people through biased laws, progress known as Reconstruction. Nationwide resistance to racial equality resulted in the reestablishment of racial subordination through biased laws, disenfranchisement, and terrorism, most dramatically enforced through lynchings. Racial terror lynchings of black people defined a shameful era in America. These lynchings differed from the hanging of white people in places where there was no functioning criminal justice system. Racial terror lynchings were directed at all black people. They enforced compliance with racial hierarchy and white.
Now, the only reason why because it was allowed to happen. The government allowed this to happen. They had a nationwide refusal for equality for black people. And so they allow all of these killings and murders to go unpunished, unchecked.
And ensured racial segregation and denial of equal rights. In 1916, in Cedar Bluff, Mississippi, a young black man named Jeff Brown accidentally bumped into a white woman while running to catch a train. A white mob stopped him and lynched him.
In
Bluff, Mississippi, a young black compliance with racial hierarchy and white supremacy, and ensured racial segregation and denial of equal rights. In 1916, in Cedar Bluff, Mississippi, a young black man named Jeff Brown accidentally bumped into a white woman while running to catch a train. A white mob stopped him and lynched him, beating him and then hanging him from a tree for his insolence and carelessness. His public murder was not about criminal punishment, but was instead about maintaining racial hierarchy and terrorizing the black community. White town residents proudly sold photographs of Mr. Brown's brutal.
Like, that's pure evil, to kill a man for an accidental offense. Like, it wasn't even something he intentionally tried to do, and they killed him. Like, I don't even know how to describe that other than just pure evil right there. That's pure evil, pure hatred. That something as precious as a life would be lost over such, not even an inconvenience, not even an infraction, like a mistake.
Brutalized body hanging from the tree for
and they
5
celebrating
cents
this type of shit too.
The Equal Justice Initiative has documented thousands of racial terror lynchings between 1877 and 1950. EJI has confirmed the lynchings of over 4,000 black people who were tortured, maimed, beaten, shot, hung, and burned alive by crowds of white people, often with the cooperation of law enforcement or government officials.
And now you see why black people don't trust the police.
The terror of lynching was so widespread that millions of black people fled the South and settled in the urban North and West as refugees of American terror, shaping the current demographic geography of the United States. On July 5, 1933, an older black woman named Elizabeth Lawrence reprimanded a group of white children who threw rocks at her as she walked home from work. Word spread that a black woman had dared to rebuke white children, and that night, an angry mob of white citizens lynched Ms. Lawrence for her audacity. Her home was then burned to the ground. Her son, Alexander, fled to Boston. Racial terror lynchings often had the atmosphere of carnivals, with food vendors and souvenir stands. Hundreds or thousands of white people would often gather to watch and take part in the torture and murder of black citizens. There has been no effort in America to confront this legacy of racial terror. While hundreds of Confederate monuments litter the landscape in southern states, there has been no public recognition of the violence endured by black people. On October 7,
you know what I'm saying? This is the crazy shit. Like, and this is the main reason why they don't want their children to learn about this in school. This is why certain states are prohibiting this type of teaching, because they don't want their children to learn how evil they great-great-grandfathers was. Or maybe even their great-grandfathers or grandfathers. They don't want them to know the level of hatred and evil that they had in their heart towards black people only for no longer being property. That's the only reason why there's still racial issues in this country now. It's because you have the white racist generations that have been taught to harbor these animosities and this hatred for a group of people that once used to be their property, and they no longer are their property, and they no longer can treat with the same type of brutality and terror that they have for hundreds of years prior to that. So that's what's the craziest part. And that's what lets you know the mindset of a lot of American people. But let's keep going.
1910, a white mob in Montgomery, Alabama tried to abduct and lynch black men being held in jail on suspicion of miscegenation or interracial sexual relations. When they were unable to get the men out of the jail, the frustrated mob lynched a black taxi driver named John Dell, who was sitting in his cab nearby. No one was ever arrested or prosecuted for his murder.
They just kill a random person?
Community Remembrance
They just take the life of a random person because they can't get to somebody else.
Jars labeled with the names of murdered black citizens are on public display at EJI, a powerful visual reminder of history we must face. EJI is working to create a permanent memorial to honor victims of lynching, a place to reflect on America's history of racial violence. We hope to place historical markers at hundreds of lynching sites around the country. Contemporary issues like police violence, excessive punishment in the criminal justice system, and even harsh and punitive treatment of children of color in schools and on streets cannot be understood without a deeper examination into our history of racial violence. More truthful discourse and reflection on our history of racial injustice is essential for us to achieve racial equity. Confronting the legacy of lynching is critical to advancing this conversation. We hope you will join our effort to help towns, cities, and states confront and recover from these tragic histories of racial violence through truth and reconciliation, where there can truly be equal justice for all.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is wild, man. This is like, this is what I don't understand. and this was a question I want to ask to white America. Like, do any of y'all feel, I don't want to say guilty, but do you feel like this type of treatment was acceptable? Or do you feel like there's any reason for the hatred or animosity for what black people had to endure in this country? Because I feel like just dealing with this level of like evil towards just another human being, just on the simple basis of either they're no longer property, they're free from slavery, or just because they're black and they want to be treated as a human being equal in a country that they built, want to be treated with the same type of respect that white people are treated with. And then it's like towns of people have been killed. There's black cities underwater right now, old black towns that are under lakes in a bunch of different states around America. Like, all the brutalization and the terrorism and like the mass murders of black people in this country, black people have never retaliated against white America. And that's another thing I don't understand about some white America not, willing to understand fully and completely the plight of black people in this country, to realize the amount of, strength and to be, I don't want to say reserved, but I don't know. Like, we've never had that spirit of wanting to brutalize white people in the same manner, or kill a bunch of white people, or lynch a bunch of white people. And it's like, I just can't see how our government allowed this type of treatment. Especially, they should have known after removing the Union troops from the South during Reconstruction what it was going to cause. I mean, I'm pretty sure they had an idea and they knew what it was going to cost. But the fact that after they saw this occurring from the late the mid 1870s all the way up until the 1960s and did nothing to try to resolve the situation or remedy it or even help black people in the slightest, but went along with this type of treatment. And it's just a shame. It's just a shame that we still have this type of mindset, and we still have people that think this way and believe these things to this day. And so, I mean, I don't have the answers, man. It's only in people's minds and their hearts change how they are. I don't know. Tell me what y'all think in the comments, man. I hope y'all was cool on the video, enjoyed the video, man. Hit the like, hit that subscribe. I appreciate the support. Again, I'm him, the King Cool. Y'all take it easy and be cool. Peace.
Speak money, big money, talk to him. Hot boy, big flames, walk